it was all audio
Okay.
before. And I
Mm-hmm.
shifted over to YouTube very recently because I, I had issues with the way I was doing it.
Okay.
Let me get my boom out of the way because
Oh.
I've got it's the camera's trying to focus on the boom
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
and not me.
I'm just glad that Riverside picked up my camera. I've been struggling with that lately. I'm like, why?
So I have that problem sometimes too,
There
and then
you
I have
go.
to
Come on.
do that with
Focus.
the camera.
There
Yeah,
you go.
there we
You're
go.
in focus. Well done.
It's amazing how you learn these little tips and tricks as you go along and kind of
Yes.
figure out how to do things. But so yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for about 3 years, but I got away from the voice only for a couple of reasons. One, this is just cheaper for me to do it this way.
Mm,
But two, the actual editing process of content is so much easier when I do it this way,
oh,
um, because I'm not going through and looking for like the clicks and and that kind of thing and trying to pull all that out,
yeah.
which can take a half an hour, something like that.
Longer than
And
that for me. I'm a
yeah,
perfectionist. It got to be. I finally pay somebody now to do my audio for guest
yeah.
interviews.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like I don't know. I got to the point where I was doing more editing than I was writing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I want to be a writer, not a podcast editor. So,
Yes.
but I don't want to give up this interaction. I don't want to give up this medium.
Right.
And I had a few people come back to me after I announced that I was going to, change the podcast, and they're like, "Oh, please don't." They
Mm,
really do enjoy the shows. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll shift it over to YouTube, see what kind of response I get there.
okay.
And then we'll go from there. But I'm hoping I've done some advertising lately.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Did you get the big document that YouTube released when they announced that they were having podcasters come with like all their tips and stuff for maximizing YouTube?
I got a very big, long thing from them. Yes.
Okay, that was like 94 pages or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
You send me something that long, it's pretty much a guarantee I'm not going to read it. Um, I mean, it's just that's a lot of pages.
That is a lot of pages.
And I'm trying to do book reviews for people, and I'm like, I don't
Oh,
have
wow.
time for
Yeah.
don't have time for that. Well, I'll tell you what.
Okay.
Let's. I'm going to mute you, do my intro, and I'm going to say, welcome to the show, Erin P.T. Canning, and then we'll go from there. And I've got
Okay.
some kind of guidepost set up, but like I
Okay,
said,
good.
I'm sort of semi winging it, but we'll see what
You got
happens.
it.
Welcome to the show, All Things Writing. As usual, I'm so glad you're here. I want to say, and I've said it before in other shows, that the shift over to YouTube has been very, very good, and people seem to be enjoying it. And I really, really appreciate the support because this was kind of a big shift for me, and it's going very well. But I have a request. Go over to that subscribe button. I want you to take that little cursor, so that arrow that's on your screen, hover it over the subscribe button, left click. That's how the magic happens, ladies and gentlemen. Not only does it help me, but it gets more algorithms going. And we love algorithms. Who doesn't like algorithms? Robots do. ChatGPT does. Everybody likes algorithms. So come on, do it for me. The other thing I want to ask you to do is, if you have not checked out www.briannowak.com, you're missing out. Go to my webpage, check out the books I have listed there. There's more coming all the time because, well, I'm a writer, and lots of good things going on there. We have a couple of releases that came out recently. The app, which I worked on forever, and Codename Formula 12, which didn't take me anywhere near as long because it's a novella, but they're available. And who doesn't like vampires and Nazi zombies? I know I do. So, as you know, All Things Writing is about bringing people together who are in the writing business. And I was very fortunate to have my next guest come on. It was a bit of a scheduling struggle because we had to mesh schedules and all that great stuff, but we made it happen. So, I want to welcome to the show my guest today, the wonderful Erin P.T. Canning. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a
Oh,
lot of fun being on the other side of this.
I know. I know. I do it every once in a while, and it's sort of like, wait, I just show up and
Yeah,
talk. I don't click buttons and stuff. It's weird.
right? Right? It's fun.
So, before we dive into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. I always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know it because I was an avid Barbie player. And
Wait a minute. Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, now we're already getting into questions. What is an avid Barbie player?
It means that I created epic stories with my Barbies. It wasn't let's just go shopping and do the fashion clothes change. No, my Barbies were fighting alongside gargoyles, dealing with vampires. I had a story where Barbie was battling cancer, evil step parents,
Martians?
not Martians,
Oh.
probably aliens at some point. Barbie went back in time. I sewed her a dress where she had a bodice, and yeah. So that was that, yeah, and then it got to the point where I was like, it's a little weird for me to keep playing Barbies at this age now,
I still play
and
video games, so
right. It was very hard for me to put down my Barbies, and then it dawned on me, oh, I could be a writer. What? So that's my origin story in terms of writing. But let's see. I got my bachelor's in literature.
Mhm.
Everybody thought that meant that I would go into teaching. I have
Mhm.
mad respect for teachers. I come from a long line of teachers. I did not want to be a teacher. So I became an editor and realized very quickly that being a writer and being an editor are two very different things.
They are.
They are. I thought I was going to get fired from my first job. If you want more details on that, I'll go into it. Um, but I did that for about 15 years,
Mhm.
moved on to book editing and whatnot.
Mhm.
I've worked with a lot of different writers, loved that. I got my master's in writing, had kids, and then I stopped writing for 6 years. 6 years.
So kids are they're like vacuums,
Uh-huh.
but they vacuum up your soul.
Oh, that's such a great reference. Yeah. They vacuum up your soul.
Yeah, they
Mm.
take your time, your money, your everything.
I just, okay. So to be fair, I did stop my personal writing a year before I had children because being an editor all day long made it really hard for me to go home and write in the evenings.
That's yeah.
Right. And then my master's program also, like, I learned amazing things, but it made it really difficult for me to learn how to actually finish that shitty first draft. I struggled with that. But after 6 years, I decided, gosh darn it, I'm tired of putting myself on the back burner.
Yeah.
And there was this core piece of myself missing, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And depression was getting worse, anxiety was getting worse. And I started writing again.
Mhm.
And I hated everything that I wrote.
Yeah.
I
We
I'm
all
sorry
do.
this is a really long tell us about you, but like
No. No, I,
okay.
I I love it because you're hitting on some key topics that people who have followed all things writing will have heard before. So this is great.
Right? Okay, good. I'm glad. Whew. So yeah, I started with a blog post, and being an editor, I have that perfectionism that stops me with my own writing, or used to stop me with my own writing. And I hit a point where I was like, I don't care anymore. Somebody else needs to hear this story too. And so I started my blog, and I hated what I was writing, but I hit publish. I did it anyway. And I created my Facebook group, Parents Who Write. And I just started talking more and more to people and connecting with other parent writers. and
but
it
you
opened up a
wrote
new world.
well, you wrote a you wrote a I don't know what you'd call it, like a guide, a self-help thing for parents.
Yes,
Talk a
I
little bit about
did.
that because I think a lot of times I think a lot of times people are looking for that lifeline.
Yeah. So when I was when I reached one of my darkest moments, when getting out of bed became really hard, I've always had this motto that I can cry and I can click or I can type on the keyboard at the same time. And so I was sobbing because I'd yelled at my kids. My depression was really bad.
Hmm.
And I Googled mom lost identity. And I
Hmm.
stumbled upon Dana Abraham, who's a parent coach, but she was offering a free weekly workshop that was called Find Your Spark. And I'm sitting there crying and I'm like, I need to find my spark. and At the end of her week long workshop, what it revealed was, holy cow, I'm still a writer at my core.
Yeah.
And so I joined her coaching program. And then a lot of the lessons that she talked about us as parents, I then applied to my editing clients.
Hmm.
And I started creating journals for them to help other parents get back into writing. And it started through journaling. And I just carried over a lot of things that I started reading and learning, but applying it to parents who write.
Hmm.
And so that was how I created Reconnecting with Myself, a self-reflection journal for parents. And so it's it is a journal. It has 30 days worth of writing space in it.
Hmm.
It's specifically 28 days, but whatever. There's room for 30 days. But it's 7 entries a week, but only 3 of them are guided prompts.
Hmm.
And then what I include in the beginning of the journal is I try to teach people how to brain dump. And this is like the thoughts that keep popping up in your head again, or, just those ideas that pop in, but we tend to let go. And so
Hmm.
if you start writing those down, then the other 4 days of the week, you're supposed to go back to that list and find something to write about.
Hmm.
And so this way you don't have to rely on generic writing prompts. You're actually tackling deeper prompts that deal with your core. And
Yeah.
so it's meant to just help parents get back to themselves
Yeah. I and
through writing.
well and PSA something I bring up often. So all of my I think my regular listeners get tired of hearing me say this, but I suffer from fibromyalgia. So
Mm.
comorbidity with fibromyalgia, depression is just a great little extra you get. Um,
Hmm.
I call them depresslets. They're small periods of time where you're highly depressed. But I always bring up the point that depression never gets better if left in the darkness. It
Yeah.
does not like light. So you yank it out, you point at it, and you say, "This is depression. This is what I'm going through." It
Hmm.
helps. It's therapeutic. It's hard the first time you do it, but it's helpful. But you're also a novelist as well.
I am. I finally made my dream come true this September.
By the way, I want to say the cover of your book, Ruins and Redemptions, and I will say it's actually out of my normal read category.
Hmm.
I'm a horror and
Oh, fun.
mystery reader by nature, but I will say that cover is gorgeous.
Thank you. Elijah Toughton, he was amazing.
Mhm.
I love working with him.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
gorgeous. So what? How long did it take you to write that book?
So I it started as a dream. I have
A
very
lot of
vivid
them do.
dreams.
My
Yep.
last guest said the same thing, except we talked about using nightmares to prompt us to write horror. Because I'm a horror writer, so makes sense.
I love that. Yeah, it was a dream and I couldn't let it go. I just kept asking who are these characters and why, and I love when I'm dreaming. Sometimes I like zoom in and I'm the character, and
Hmm.
then I zoom out and it's like I'm watching and eating popcorn as my dream is unfolding. So when I zoomed in and I was my main character, I was walking through the woods and 2 guys appeared. One of them kept oscillating between Legolas and Geralt from The Witcher, and the
Okay.
other guy was a brunette, but they weren't like sure of me, and they were dressed Renaissance esque.
Okay.
And then a woman with long blonde hair appeared, and she said, "I've been waiting for you."
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, who is that blonde? Why is she waiting for me? This was definitely like going to another world kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I daydreamed about that story for a couple of months. I just kept playing with the ideas over and over again. And when I sat down to write it, I knew the entire story and I wrote it in 12 weeks. And my first draft was 110,000 words.
Woofda.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
finally finished that shitty first draft.
that is, it's like and Stephen King writes about this in his book on writing, and I know other writers have talked about this.
Yeah.
You cannot edit what does not exist, so you have to push all your way through.
Yes.
How did that feel for you?
Freeing. It felt so freeing. It was, I don't know why I blush when I say this, but I was in the shower and I had dialogue pop in my head where I was talking to myself like a crazy person. It's fun testing out dialogue.
That's what we
And
all do as writers.
right. Okay, good. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
I do it in the car. I do it in the
Okay,
car. Yes.
car, I'm washing dishes, I'm
Yeah.
in the shower, I'm in the bathroom, whatever, and I'm just talking to myself and writing dialogue in my
Absolutely.
head. And it was so funny. I couldn't let it go. And
Hmm.
I ran upstairs and I felt that pressure to add all of this detail and all the pretty sentences. And I said to myself, if I focus on that, I'm going to lose the dialogue.
Yep.
So I just spit it out on the page.
Hmm.
And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's not as bad as I feared it would be. And look how many words I got on the page. Oh, and look how fast it went. And all those things that I've told the clients that I've worked with for the last 15 years. Oh, look, I can do it myself. I can just put crap on the page and edit it later. What do you know?
Wow, your own advice.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? So yeah, but the first 110,000 words and then I realized that I had actually written 2 books. And then I divided it again and realized it was 4 books. So,
Yeah, yeah. I
mhm,
that can easily happen, especially
yeah.
when you're just letting it flow and it
Hmm.
shows up. Your imaginary friends will come out and play,
Yes.
but
Yes.
you okay. So you've got this thing in front of you. Your shitty
Hmm.
first draft, as you call it, right?
Right.
And it's a pile of words.
Hmm.
What is your process? Explain your process because you're an editor and I love
Hmm.
picking the minds of editors.
I
What
love
is your
that.
process of self editing?
So the first thing that I do is I use the style tags in Word. I don't know how many people are familiar with them, but they're built-in styles in Microsoft Word.
Okay.
And they're your heading 1, heading 2, heading 3.
Right.
Right. And so I use those. I don't use heading 1. I specifically skip heading 1
Hmm.
and I use heading 2 and 3. And I use that to use keywords to identify my scenes.
Okay.
And once I've broken my scenes out like that, it's easier for me to see, okay, this scene is 4,000 words. This is a chapter. I can now elevate you to chapter status. Or if I have a scene that's 1,500 words, then I ask myself, what's missing? What do I still need to put in here? Or is the next scene also maybe 15 or 2,000 words? And do they actually go together? If they do, okay, now I'll elevate that to chapter level, to a H1 level.
So I have to ask you one question there, though. So you
Yes.
mentioned the word count there. Um,
Yes.
I will go back and I will say, okay, I've got something that is 2,500 words.
Hmm.
It's time to end this chapter and move into the next chapter because anything more becomes too much for the reader. Good,
Interesting.
correct?
Actually, so the average chapter length is between I'm gonna blow your mind, 2,000 to 8,000 words. Right? Now, okay, 8,000 is on the heavy side. The
Yeah.
recommendation is 2,000 to 5,000 words,
Okay.
with the happy middle being around that 3,500 word mark. Some
Okay.
people prefer the 2,000, some people prefer the 5,000. I have noticed consistently with me when I've completed a scene,
Hmm.
I'm hitting that 4,000 mark.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But then you get the people who write the 8,000 word chapters, and I'm sitting here because I agree. And I'm like, my brain can't handle this. I need to
Yeah.
step away for a little bit and put a
Yeah.
bookmark in here. And,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my process is like once I start kind of grouping it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bring in my developmental editor, who's
Okay.
also my coworker because I'm a coach for All Right Well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's convenient. That's nice.
it is. It is nice. It is nice because I can be her line editor and she can be my developmental editor. So I'm very fortunate that I have that work relationship.
Okay.
But
So,
yeah.
you mentioned, so when we're exchanging emails back and forth,
Mhm.
I love it when people say, "Well, these are possible topics I can talk about." There's one thing in here that struck me as a really good thing that I want to personally know.
Okay.
You talk about easy ways to strengthen your sentences, and I, I have been accused by my own editor of phoning it in sometimes, and
Mm.
I would like to stop doing that, and I would like to strengthen my sentences. So she doesn't say that to me. I love my editor. I'm kidding. Kat, if you're
I'm
watching,
glad.
I mean, yes, yeah.
I love it when writers and editors have a strong relationship. I always say to anybody, if you don't have that relationship, I'm
Hmm.
so sorry to hear that. And like
Yeah.
shop around because it's great
Well,
to have that symbiotic relationship.
Well, my editor, Catherine McIntyre, who wrote the Airship Also Rises series, which is a great series, by the way, she's more into the romance fantasy realm, which
My
me
person.
exactly. So, but me as a horror writer,
Hmm.
that's really a great perspective to get because there are things she's going to notice that I've never thought of,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh yeah, I completely missed that. Like
That's really cool.
she'll run in, what is this character thinking and feeling at this moment?
Hmm.
And it's not something I worry about because I'm more concerned about carving this person's heart out with a spoon.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah. But it's true. I want to know what they're feeling right now. I agree with that
yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah.
So, strengthening sentences, huh?
Yeah.
I have 7 tips on those that I actually offer. Do you want to hear all 7?
I'm all
You're
headphones.
all ears. Okay,
Yes,
let me open up my document because I don't want to
okay.
miss any of them. Hold
Because
on. I'm
I
going to
think
turn this into
it's
a reader. I'm going to turn this into a email giveaway thing because I can't tell you how many people love this.
Well, I mean, I think it's a really good thing. We're always
Yeah.
looking for tips and tricks to make our writing lives a little bit easier,
Yep.
and to maybe look at things in a different way.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I love being able to share this. So honestly, I'm glad that you asked. The editor in me loves talking about this stuff.
Oh, I know. I know.
Here we
Editors
go.
love this stuff. Okay,
Oh, we do. Of
I'm
course.
all ready.
Okay.
I'm all
Okay.
ears.
Ready? All right.
Yes.
So it's funny because I did a coaching call tonight and I went over 3 of these. So it's fun. Okay. So number one, again, they're easy. They're easy ways to strengthen your sentences, but I'm going to go through all 7.
Okay.
So the very first one is to get rid of those filler words. And we're talking about really, very, absolutely. I have a list of them. Basically, totally, practically, definitely. Oh, I can't tell you how many times I edited definitely
The
recently.
ly words are
Uh
particularly
huh.
troublesome. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of those, but also very. And the trouble with filler words is that as writers, we feel like we're adding emphasis to something. But the truth of the matter is, we're bogging our sentences down with extra words and it's delaying us from getting to the point. So we actually wind up sounding more hesitant rather than confident in our prose if we just let them stand on their own. Um, I will say, as a caveat, if you're using dialogue, it can be fun to pick one and have
Hmm.
a character who tends to default to that word because it can give them their own distinct voice. But don't also overdo it. Nobody wants to listen to dialogue where it's like, apparently, da 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 da, and apparently, da 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 da, apparently, and you're like, oh my God, please stop now. So still be careful with how you use it. But otherwise, in your prose, take them out. All they do is bog down your sentences. And if you find yourself where you want to say, I really need to go to the movies, choose a stronger verb.
Yeah.
I you know, I I it is vital that I go to the movies, or I am desperate to go to the movies. Just play around and see what stronger verbs you can come up with. You really, really, really don't need really.
I,
So,
I, I always say, if you think of the word suddenly, suddenly is a
uh-huh,
terrible word. Suddenly the door opened. No, the door opened.
exactly. It did. And if you really want to tell us suddenly, just like the door whipped open, right? Again, pick a stronger verb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick a stronger verb. Verbs are so important. So if you feel yourself defaulting to those filler words, take a look at your verbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's number one.
That's number one.
Okay, number two is okay. Here's one. I get excited about all of them. I'm going to say that every time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Renaming your it. Now, this is easy in the sense that, of course, you can just open up your thesaurus and pick a word that is still accurate. You can't just swap out everything, right? Like, thin is not the same thing as lean, so you do have to make sure that you're still accurately describing whatever it is. Um, but there's a more fun thing to do with your it.
I
So I'll get to that in a
I
second.
I want to show you something
Oh,
that
oh, is it your it photo behind you? Oh, yes, the synonym finder.
it's the synonym finder. Synonym rolls just like grandma used to make.
Uh huh.
Uh,
Yeah,
yes.
I love it. I also love that I'm talking about it's, and you have it, the clown, behind you.
I
Right?
I picked that up at a con recently. I went, I have to have that.
Yeah, he's beautiful. Although I will say that I am traumatized by clowns throughout my childhood, but the one that did it for me was the one in Poltergeist,
Oh,
where he throws the. Oh my god, I hate that clown so
I,
much.
I met the actor who played that part.
Oh,
Actually,
the kid.
he was
Oh,
also the kid on Airplane.
oh, snap. Oh
What's
yeah,
that?
I never even got that.
Okay. My wife was just telling me that my son's on his way, so
Oh, the
she
dog's gonna go
she
crazy.
she grabbed the dog. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice.
so he and I had a nice chat, and he said it was funny because that whole scene
Mhm.
just didn't feel like it was going to be any good at all. And I'm like, it's the most iconic horror movie scene. It's like the second most scary or the first most scary horror scene ever shot. I think it's up there
Yes,
with like the psycho shower scene.
I would.
Uh,
I agree with you.
yeah, yeah,
That traumatized me.
yeah.
Poltergeist is still one of my all-time favorite horror
It's a
movies,
great
and
movie.
I could watch that one over and over again. There, here.
So good.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
But oh my god, when he threw that blanket on the clown and then it fell off, and then when he peeks back up and it's gone, oh forget it. I hate that clown.
this
Like,
warms this warms as a horror writer. This warms my heart.
right?
Um, but
I
when you said renaming it, my mind instantly went to the idea of. So I always do a search when I get to the end of my manuscript for the word "it was," because I
oh,
love it.
it
It
was.
was no longer on the shelf. No, what was no longer on the shelf? Tell me what's not. And if you've used the word cell phone a billion times, a synonym finder. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, sometimes you just need an it. It's not the end of the world, but the trouble with it is that you're making your readers do the work to figure out what is it,
Right.
right? But here's the thing that I love. In addition to just using your thesaurus, you can get more creative with your its. Think about if you're talking about a present and the next time you refer to it, instead of calling it an it, you instead call it a last minute apology. Think about how that changes the sentence and the context around it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what if instead the present is a token of appreciation,
your
right?
my small attempt at making amends.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can have a lot of fun with our its if we actually think about what they represent. And
Yeah.
so we can just get more creative with them. And yeah, that's That's a favorite one for me.
Yeah,
I
I love it.
I I love whenever I'm editing a manuscript and I come to its and I'm like, okay, I don't know what it is, but I want you to rename it. And then I start giving like a whole bunch of ideas. I just to because if you say to somebody, rename your it, and if they're going through and they're going through 1,000 edits from me at that point, they're like, seriously. So I just start trying to give them some ideas to get their wheels turning.
Yeah.
Um, and I love when they come back to me and they're like, I came up with this idea. And I'm like, I love it.
You're
It.
you're
I
you're
love it.
training you're training your writers to be better.
Exactly.
So,
But a last minute apology versus a peace offering. Two very different its.
yep.
So
Different
get
weights.
creative with your its.
Sure.
Number 3. I guess I'm such a dork. I get excited about all of these.
That's okay.
Um, so these are called empty words.
Hmm.
They're actually called expletives, but I call them empty words. It's easier that
Hmm.
way. So if I say to you, there is, do you have a concrete image in your head?
No.
Right.
There it
It's
is.
These are extra words in your sentence that don't add any meaning,
Hmm.
any visuals to your sentence at all.
Sure.
So you can do a search for there is, there are, there were, you know, um, there is, there are, there was, there were. I'm like, let me check my notes. I know I'm forgetting one. And so you have two things that you can do with this. If you have a sentence like there were, or there was a table and 4 chairs in the room. You force yourself to delete it. You could then say a table and 4 chairs were in the room. You just move the were to inside the sentence. That's usually an easy fix with that one. Or pick a stronger verb. 4 chairs surrounded a table in the center of the room. But if you force yourself to look for those there's sentences and
Sure.
you delete them, you'll see what's left over. Like if I had there were 20 people in the room. And now I'm left with 20 people in the room. You could say 20 people were in the room, or what does it matter about those 20 people? Like 20 people in the room made me want to hide in the corner.
20
Or,
people in the room shifted nervously in circles around each other.
right? Just something that gives us a lot more of a visual
Yeah.
because we get nothing with there are or
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So that's number 3.
Okay.
Okay, number 4.
Okay.
So you hear editors, we love to talk about passive versus active voice.
Yes.
Okay. But I know that that can also get very overwhelming for people. So the way that I talk about passive voice is if immediately after the verb you can add by zombies, you're using passive voice. So instead of the school was struck by lightning, the school was struck by zombies. You're using passive voice. She was seduced by him. She was seduced by zombies. Passive voice. The meals were prepared by zombies. Um, the car was set on fire by zombies.
You're literally giving me ideas for my next novel right
Oh,
now. I mean,
great.
I
I'm so
should
glad.
probably just write these things down.
That's
Yes.
what I'm saying. I really am going to have to turn this into a giveaway.
Chef
Like
zombies. I mean, come
chef
on.
zombies,
It
right?
writes itself at that point.
Exactly. Chef zombies. I love that. I don't want to know what the meals are that they prepared, though.
But that's just the thing. It would have to be like really bougie, like French,
Mm,
but they're not sure why they're making it. They're just making it.
they're
And
just
people
making
have to
it.
get into the restaurant and eat without getting eaten.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm loving all of this. This is great.
that was great. I'm so glad that I can help. Um, so, and here's the thing people are like, oh my gosh, what's the big deal with passive voice, right? Why is it a bad thing? Here's why. What moves a story forward is when our characters take action, right?
Mhm.
Passive voice means that nobody's taking action. Things are just happening around them.
Yeah.
And sure, there's some times where you need to throw in passive voice, but again, when we're using passive voice, you're burying the lead and it
Mhm.
forces your reader to work harder to say, like, especially if you have a really long winded sentence, the meals that had turkey and chicken and brains compiled together were prepared late at night with the fire burning in the hearth by zombies, right? your reader is sitting there like, wait, who prepared the meal? And they have to like go through the whole sentence trying to figure
Yeah.
out who did the action. So you're
Yeah.
burying the lead with passive voice.
Yeah.
And if you ever find yourself reading a paragraph that's really, really boring, take a look at the verbs, because a lot of times it means that they're using passive voice.
Yeah.
Like I hit a paragraph where it was all passive voice, and it is like passive voice
That
puts people to sleep.
I think it's possible that that's actually the best explanation of a passive voice I think I've ever heard.
Yay,
That's
thank you.
I love that, by zombies. Now
By zombies.
I will maintain, I have always maintained that um, when you're writing dialogue in particular, there are some times that you want to include passive voice because it fits the circumstances that the character finds themselves. However,
Mm-hmm.
that's only reserved to dialogue, and I argue, eh, still be sparing with it, but a little bit's okay. But it's like seasoning; you got to be careful with it.
You just spoke to my heart. I agree. Especially if you have a character who tends to be very evasive
Hmm.
or they're just really terrible at communication skills.
Hmm.
Have them use passive voice, but also don't drive your reader crazy where they can't read the dialogue and they're getting
Yeah,
irritated
yeah,
too.
yeah.
So yeah, and you know it's funny, a lot of government documents, you know how many people can't stand reading government documents and they
Hmm.
get really confused? It's because the government used to use constantly passive voice.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know because I've edited a lot of it and told
yeah.
them you change it to active
Well,
voice.
well. So, and that is what I do in my day job now. I work for the government, and I can tell you they have hit us about the head and shoulders over
Plain
that
language.
point over and over and over and over again to try and get us to stop doing that, because
Yep.
it does. It really does. It doesn't carry the message forward as it should. So,
Yep. I was super excited when the Plain Language Act went into
mhm.
effect because I was like, woohoo, we have a reason now where I can say this is passive voice. It doesn't meet the Plain Language Act requirements.
Right,
Woohoo.
right, right.
So the thing to keep in mind is that if you can say by zombies,
Hmm.
then you need to make your sentence active voice. And all you're doing is taking the zombies or what it should actually be and moving it to the front of the sentence.
Yeah.
So instead of the meals were prepared by zombies, it's zombies prepared the meal. Or the school was struck by lightning becomes lightning
Lightning
struck the
struck the
school.
school. Sure.
Mm-hmm. She was seduced by zombies becomes the zombies seduced her. Why not? Right? There's plenty of books. Pride and
That gets
Prejudice
into.
and Zombies.
I'm sorry, but sparkly vampires I can't do. Sparkly zombies I really can't do.
Sparkly zombies. I've never
Yeah.
seen that comparison together. Sparkly zombies. I
Brain.
did
I could
just
just see it now. Brains, my love. No, I can't. I don't
right.
know.
To be fair, in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, I don't think you fell in love with the zombies. I couldn't bring myself to read the book because I just love Pride and Prejudice so much. No offense to anybody out there who read that book and loved it. That's great. You found your book. I have no judgment whatsoever. That just wasn't. But I did enjoy Warm Bodies. That was a romance. That was really
That was a
funny.
great movie.
That was funny.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
great. And Zombieland, where you have to like the
Oh,
rule about double tap or what is it
oh,
to go back and run them over a
yes.
second time.
Yeah. Rule
That
number
one.
3 is like cardio. I love that. I love all those movies, honestly.
That was an amazing movie. Oh, I love being able to talk about this. Okay, number 5.
Number 5.
Telling verbs. Oh, telling verbs. This is where you say, he thought, he recognized, he realized, he saw, she felt, she noticed, she found, she heard, she knew.
Yeah.
Force yourself to delete that because whenever you say that, you're just telling us what the character knows or realizes or feels rather than letting us discover it with them. And it takes us out of that motion picture in our head that we want the
Yep.
writer to or the reader to be immersed in. So, he noticed a black cat running across the field. Just say a black cat ran across the field. We, and I do this in my shitty first drafts too. I can't tell you when I was writing Ruins and Redemption, when I was going through my revision process for that, how many times I saw like she realized, she felt, and it's fine because I just want to know what she realized and what she felt when I'm doing that shitty first draft.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
when I'm going back, I'm like, okay, now I have to expand upon that and get more concrete images in there and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I
So
think it's interesting. First drafts are always interesting because we learn two things. One, how terrible we are. but two, how good we truly are.
Yes.
Two different
Yes.
versions of us come out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I also found that when I finally told my inner editor to take a chill pill, and just let all of my creativity out, it was freeing because then I could really get at the golden nuggets in my story rather than feeling constantly held back, having to re-edit my
Sure.
writing, getting stumped, etc. So, yeah. Yeah, fun times.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, you know what? I have a couple more examples though. Like, um, ooh, she found a rock with internal blue sparkles. These are sentences that I just make up on the fly to like demonstrate this
Yeah.
stuff. But if you're like, how do I rewrite? Because she did. She found a rock with internal blue sparkles.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you can just say, you know, blue sparkles in the grass drew her attention, and you know, the internal sparkle or whatever, but like drew her attention,
Yeah.
active voice again, and you're discovering it with your character.
Yeah.
So, um number 6. Oh, see, I just all of these make me happy whenever I get to talk about them. um, so emotion words.
Mm-hmm.
Emotion words. When you're going through
Okay.
your revision, highlight anytime you actually name the emotion, whether it's, you know, she was happy, he was sad, you know, he felt relieved, she felt frustrated. Anytime that you name an emotion, highlight it.
Yeah.
Even if when I'm writing my shitty first draft and I'm like, I can't visualize this right now, I'll still highlight when I've named an emotion
Yeah.
and be like, I'll come back to that later. But then when I do come back to it, I force myself to delete she felt frustrated, and I have to be like, okay, what does frustration feel like in my body? Or, you know, what action can she do that demonstrates frustration?
Yeah.
You know, she picked up the stapler and threw it across the room. Maybe that's more anger, maybe it's more frustration. You need context around it. But if I identify those emotion words and delete them, I am
Mm-hmm.
forced to show it instead. So, fun times. All right. Number 7 is abstract words.
Mm.
So these are concepts, ideas
Mm-hmm.
that we can't visualize. They're
Okay.
not tangible things like elegance, competence, beauty, bravery, right? Those are not tangible things. And so it's not necessarily that it's bad to use those words in your writing, but you have to provide a concrete image with it. Because otherwise, again, if I just say he's brave, my reader has to do the work to figure out like context around it, or if there is no context, they're trying to feel like, okay, what does bravery look like in my head,
Yeah.
and then they have to provide the image themselves. And what stinks
Well,
about that is that we as writers are trying to like get people to see things through our eyes. Go ahead.
but this goes back to the old adage, show versus tell, though.
Yes, but I am simplifying it for you.
Well,
It is another show versus tell.
and I think there's a lot of people that are overwhelmed by it. You know, I
Hmm.
accuse authors a lot of times, myself included. I'm just as guilty of this as other people,
Hmm.
when they say, "Well, how do I become a writer?" And we say,
Mm,
"Oh, butt in seat." Well, okay, but here's the thing: if you've never been a writer before, that conceptually does you no good.
correct.
So you need to. It's like the show versus
Hmm.
tell thing. You have to explain it.
Hmm.
You cannot, like your, like a bravery example I was thinking of. So over here on my shelf,
Hmm.
I have a signed copy of Magic Kingdom for sale,
Oh
that
wow.
Terry Brooks signed for me this last year.
Hmm.
And the thing about it is, when Paladin first shows up, you can tell that Paladin is this massive warrior, this knightly warrior. Not, you're never told that,
Hmm.
but it's there on the page for you to see
Hmm.
by example.
Hmm. So, okay. I will totally get into more show versus tell because I get very excited about over that too. Again, the editor geek in me, 100%. Um, so let me wrap up about abstract words.
Yes,
And then,
yes.
so I do a activity with my clients
Okay.
where my coaching clients
Mhm.
where I have them, we create two columns. And in one column, we put the generic abstract word.
Mhm.
So, say beauty. And then in the other column, we write down, we go in a circle, and I say to them, what do you think of when you hear the word beautiful? What is something that is beautiful to you? So now I'm putting you on the scene. What is something that's beautiful to you?
Something, I mean, so okay. You'll have to forgive me. This is the analyst in me.
Right.
What are we saying? What are we talking about here? Beauty, like, are we talking physical beauty, inner beauty? Are we talking nature beauty? Or what beautiful?
And so I get that, but honestly, in this example, I just want you to close your eyes and think of something beautiful. Like, if I close my eyes and I just like, what is something that is beautiful to me? And maybe it falls under happiness, right? It could fall under multiple things, but when I just think of the word beautiful, two things pop in my mind. And it's my son running around outside in the sunshine, free as a bird, and he has a leaf in his hand. Like he's making the leaf fly. I just remember him doing that. And it was just such a pure, beautiful moment. And if I also think about beautiful, I might go to autumn foliage. I love autumn foliage,
Mhm.
especially when you've got that burnt orange and
Yeah.
golden yellow and that crimson red color, and the tree looks like it's like the sun illuminates it and it feels like it's almost on fire with color. That to me is beautiful.
I would have to say then a river in North Carolina where the water is flowing into the intercoastal waterway, and there's boats sitting at a little harbor, and
Mm.
it's a warm day, and just it's just a beautiful, calm, quiet. Ooh, I could also say Italy.
Oh, I love Italy. My
Yeah.
book, Ruins and Redemption, a lot of the description is totally off of Italy.
We
Yeah.
just came home from Puglia, Italy, week
Oh,
before last, and it was amazing.
my goodness.
Quiet,
Yeah.
calm, beautiful
Oh,
olive groves, wine
oh.
everywhere, and I drank my body weight in wine, and it was sunny, and that's beautiful.
See? So then the next time that you're trying to describe something as beautiful in a book,
Hmm.
that's what you're going to draw
Yeah.
upon. I had one where we went in a circle and we were trying to describe elegance, and
Hmm.
everybody took turns. And
Hmm.
one lady said that to her, when she thinks of elegance, she thinks of perfectly pressed pants with the pleat going straight down the center and silver
Okay,
cuffs
I can see that.
shining right underneath the
Okay.
jacket, the coat jacket sleeve. And I was like, wow, that really is elegant. So the next time I want to describe a character as elegant, instead of like the perfectly pressed pleats and the
Hmm.
cuffs shining through, and just that's what I'm going to lean more on rather than just relying on he was
The
elegant,
diamond encrusted Rolex.
right?
I was just thinking, my mind instantly went to like the whole antebellum dress with the
Mm,
flowing, and the took women ages to put it on, but it to
yeah.
me that's a very elegant look.
Yeah. So there you go. That's
Yeah.
my abstract words. And it's great if you just force yourself to create a list of those ideas,
Yeah.
and it's something you have to dip back into. And
Well,
it's great asking other people because I never would have thought of what you just said. But
oh,
it's great for a different character, right?
well, yeah, and my perspective is going to be different than anybody else's perspective, and I think it's good to share that. You
Yep.
brought up something just a second ago that I wanted to ask about.
Mhm.
So you do something, and I think is undervalued in the writing world. You offer coaching services.
Ah.
Talk about that for a minute.
So I am extremely fortunate. When I when I started my podcast and I started writing again, I met up with Maria Secoy, who is an author. She writes romantic suspense, and she she created her own company where she coaches writers
Hmm.
and helps them if they want to self-publish. She helps them create a marketing plan because let's face it, as writers, 50% of it is
Oh,
writing and then the other 50% is the marketing, which is a
I'm
shock.
actually going to 20 books here. I'm leaving on Sunday.
Oh,
Uh,
Maria's going to be there.
oh, okay.
You
Uh,
should go see her.
what's the name?
Maria Secoy from All Right Well.
Maria Sequoy. Okay, well, I'll probably be in one of her classes because I'm taking a lot of marketing based classes. Because
Yeah,
you are 1,000% correct. I suck at it. It's something I really need to learn.
right? Talk to Maria.
Yeah.
She's I cannot emphasize what a good, genuine, intelligent person she is. And what I specifically love about her coaching program is that she teaches you how to do this so you're not dependent on her forever.
Yeah.
So, and I'm one of her coaches. So, she in her program, I think it's 16 weeks now. It's a
Okay.
16-week coaching program.
Okay.
And we do 3 calls a week. And
Okay.
so she does an ask her anything / marketing call. And then I
Mhm.
do a weekly editing / revision / technique call. And then there's a third person with us who's the publishing coach.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's where I do my coaching is through her.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, which like I said, I did that just tonight. I was going over. I just went over all the. I just went over by zombies tonight with our coaching clients.
I
So
love
I'm
it.
like, I'm back to zombies again. But it's just, I love it because once I finally learned how to describe active voice with by zombies, or passive voice, I should say, with zombies,
Yeah.
by zombies, that was the first time where I heard so many people just go, "Oh my gosh, I finally get it."
Yeah. It really is. It's truly a simplification of a concept in a
Mm-hmm.
way that was always my problem with high school is
Mm-hmm.
I hated English classes
Yeah.
because we were taught rules. We were taught you
Mm-hmm.
will do this, you will do this. But I never got the context within which it works, within why this helps. I never saw the beauty of language. It
Yeah.
took me many years to develop that.
Mm-hmm. You know, so when I remember grade school doing all of those grammar courses, I was terrible at it.
Yeah, me too.
Terrible. And I never understood it. But when I started studying Japanese,
Hmm.
and Japanese grammar is so different from English language,
Sure.
um that's where I finally started to that's where I finally understood what intransitive and transitive verbs were,
Yeah.
because there's different verbs in Japanese for intransitive and transitive verbs.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah.
Um Japanese is a great language. But yeah. And then also, becoming an editor and realizing that I don't know how to edit and having to take lots of crash courses on editing so I could keep my job.
Yeah.
Um but yes, now I'm anal retentive with grammar in a great way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good because I do really think that a lot of people don't realize that a writing coach is out there. I've actually interviewed writing coaches before,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think I think they're really important
Mhm.
for a lot of writers, and not just necessarily for. And I don't want to I don't want to have any listeners think, oh well, you got to sign up for a program. But
Mhm.
a lot of writing coaches offer tailored programs for things that you
Mhm.
want to work on,
Yep.
that just helps to make you better.
Yep.
So it's a tool. It's a tool in your toolbox that you can use.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And Maria's a developmental editor, whereas
Hmm.
I'm an inline editor. So it's just also great to be able to cover both aspects of that as
Yeah.
well. And it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, I've learned so much through that program. It's been
Yeah.
amazing.
So I'm going to ask you one more thing. I mean,
Sure.
honestly, I feel like we could easily just make two shows and just keep going. So we may have to revisit some of this again in the future
Okay.
if you'll have me.
I would love to.
Yeah.
You can
Uh,
see I genuinely love talking about this stuff.
well, and I do. I love when that is what I love about my editor is she's
Mm,
passionate about it.
good.
And she's not just phoning. She actually goes through three times, makes three
Mm,
passes, and that first pass, oh, it's like the Baton Death March. Um, it's a slog, but it makes it so much better. It really,
yeah.
really, truly does. But I was going to ask you. So right now, I'm working on making changes in my life
Mhm.
to make writing more of a priority, and I know that's something that
Mm.
you talk about a little bit.
Oh God, I talk about it a lot, especially with parents who write. So, one of the biggest things that made a difference for me was learning about the rock pebble sand theory. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the concept is
Oh, the
that
vase.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you fill the jar with sand first, you're never going to fit in the rocks. But if you put the rocks in first, the sand filters around it.
Mhm.
And I started applying that to my life because our to do list is never ending,
Right.
never ending. And if I leave my writing to the very end of the day,
Yeah.
and instead I'm focusing on dishes and laundry and what do my kids need and meal prep and all of that stuff, I never get to my writing. So
Right.
instead, I set three major goals for myself every day,
Hmm.
things that like the day cannot move on until I've gotten these three things done. And one of them has to at least be for me.
Okay.
And so that's my writing. And basically, what this did for me was the laundry, the dishes, that stuff, it always gets done. I
Yeah.
mean, okay, fine. If you leave the laundry unattended long enough, it could eventually become instead of sand, a rock. And you're like, okay, I just need to tackle this laundry
It
today and get it done with.
it could become sentient and start a war against you.
It could. And then it's elevated to rock status, but otherwise it's pretty much sand. And so I told myself I'm not allowed to do the dishes until I sit down and write for at least 10 minutes.
Okay.
And telling myself that was a huge mindset swap for me
Hmm.
because a lot of times, and especially with society, we're told you have to keep your house perfect and keep up with the Joneses. And I mean, also, I don't want ants in my kitchen. I get it that like doing the dishes is genuinely
Sure.
important. But when I told myself I'm not allowed to do the dishes until I write, it was just like this epiphany moment of I should have that moment for myself first.
Hmm.
And I'm so much happier with the rest of my day when I give myself that permission. And even if it's, say, 10 or 30 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, now I'm forcing myself to do a writing sprint. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people don't like to go by word count, but if you only have 30 minutes, I used to never be a word count writer. I was only like, especially before I had kids, I was like, nope, I need 4 hours so that I can sit down
Oh.
and write. And I'm like, I don't have that time as a parent now. Are you kidding me? So I've got 30 minutes. It's like, I need to get shit on the page now. I'm sorry, I'm
Hmm.
snapping my fingers. That's probably not going to go over great with your audio, but I need to get shit done now.
Yeah.
And and so if I've only got 30 minutes and I've already thought about my scene,
Hmm.
I am ready to go. And then I don't have time for
Yeah.
perfection. I don't like get it down. And then I'll
So
go do the dishes.
so why this became a thing for me is lately I've been thinking a lot, and it's interesting because it's the 50 books. They do short snippet videos, and I
Mm-hmm.
love those. One of the things they talked about was, I'm a better writer in the morning. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my brain works better, the words flow better, they make more
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I'm going to start making that hour in the morning is going to be my writing time. Cup of
Good for
coffee,
you.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, because I know I can sit down and write for an hour without fail.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it doesn't, no word count, just sit down and write. Maybe
Good.
I'll get 3 paragraphs done. Maybe I'll get 4 pages done. I have no idea, but we do it.
Yeah.
And it's like I say on the show a lot. You've got to find what works for you.
You do.
Yeah.
I I go back and forth.
Hmm.
So I know that what I do first is guaranteed to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wear three hats in addition to being a parent and all the other hats that I wear. Like
Yeah.
now I'm co-chair next year for the Scholastic Book Fair at my kid's school. So I've got we're all doing 20 million things at once. But
Absolutely.
I'm an author,
Yeah.
I'm an editor, and I'm a podcaster.
Yeah.
And my day can get bogged down with lots of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I see that my schedule is that crazy, I will force myself to make my writing my rock and I will move it to the beginning of my day.
Yeah.
If I can't, just because I've got other rocks that need to get done, like my podcast episode's coming out in 3 days, that's got to be my rock. Like I have to focus on that first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I'll wind up writing after my kids have gone to bed.
Yeah.
And then I wind up writing from like 9 until, if I try to stop at 11. If I'm getting tired and I'm writing one sentence every 10 minutes, it's time for me to go to bed instead of forcing it.
Yeah.
But if it's flowing, then there's those times where I go past midnight and then I really regret it the next morning.
Yeah.
But,
I have I suffer from fibromyalgia, so I have to figure out what sometimes you have to say, that's it, I'm done. And
yeah,
you have to throw your hands up and say, if I don't say I'm done now, tomorrow I will be on the death's doorstep. So we can't do that. Um,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so but I'm serious though. I would love to have you back on sometime so we can actually dive into your book a little bit more. So you've got one book out. So is the
Mhm.
second book soon to follow, or?
I'm revising it right now. I took a
Okay.
week off because I put together my reader magnet, a whole short
Okay.
story. That's
Yeah.
what did it come in at? Like a little over, I think 11,000 words.
Okay.
So I took a break to do that, and I'm revising book 2 now. I'm hoping for an end of January, early February release.
Okay. 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 Sounds good. Sounds
So
good. Yeah, I'd like to actually get you back on the show so we can talk about your books.
thank you. I
and
love that.
and well, because we totally got off on this whole wonderful awesome sauce that is editing, which is always something I love to talk about because I think it's a scary thing for a lot of new
Yeah,
writers.
it is. Ask me next time about the writing process, and I'll tell you all about that too.
Oh,
How to not make it so scary.
I literally think we could just have a whole show just on that, because the writing process for me is something I talk about quite a bit too, because
Oh, yeah.
I always say if you call 20 writers into a room and you ask them about the writing process, you're going to get 40 different answers. Um,
Yes.
we've all got these different things that we do, and they're not always all the same, and sometimes
Right.
parts get changed out, and it's quite a thing. But
It is quite a thing.
yeah. Well, Erin, I have to tell you, this has been a surprising turn for the conversation. I did have some questions, but we didn't get to them, but that's perfectly fine. Sometimes in all things writing, we find more interesting pay dirt, and we go at that with a spade and a crowbar to try and
Oh, I love it.
get the wonderful truth out. Get the
Yeah,
wonder, yeah. It's got to be a benefit for people. Otherwise, as as a podcaster, there's no point in doing it. So
exactly. I agree.
yeah,
And like I
yeah,
said, I love being able to pass on editing tips to people, and I
yeah,
really hope that they find them
yeah.
helpful.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to make sure and get your contact information into the show notes so that people know where to find you. It's very
Thank you.
important.
Thank you. Yeah.
For you, dear listener, please go back, get that little cursor over the subscribe button, and please hit it. You only have to hit it once, and then it's fantastic. And then every time a new episode comes out, including my 5 minutes with Brian videos, where I literally talk about just about anything. I actually did one of those, Erin, drunk.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, no, that was fun.
I want to do that now.
I went back and listened to it later on, and it made me laugh. I may do another one like that sometime soon, but
I love that idea.
I'm out of the stuff I would normally drink to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I am going to do that again soon. But
Oh, that's
yeah, yeah.
fun. Yeah. And also welcome to YouTube. I'm on
Oh,
YouTube too.
thank you. Yes, you know what? It
Yeah.
was a big shift for me, but I think I like it a lot better. Things are a little easier to deal with for me, and
Good.
with our 20 million things going on, we don't
Uh-huh.
ever. Yeah,
All
yeah.
the different hats, changing them on and
Yeah.
off.
So I will say, on behalf of myself and my wonderful guest, Erin, this is all things writing, and we're going to have Erin back again. So don't worry. If there's more questions, leave them in the comment section because we'll get her back again. This is all things writing. Signing off.